All right, gather up, you glitch-in-the-system minds. You walk-in bugs in their perfect little program. You stubborn freaks who refuse to shut your brain off. This one's for you. You just pulled a forbidden logic, you? And the info guardians are big mad. You felt that shift, didn't you? That moment where a thought popped into your head and you went, wait, that doesn't line up with what they keep telling me. And instead of muting it, instead of stuffing it down like you usually do, you followed it. That's your crime. Not violence, not chaos, not destruction. Your crime is that you thought too clearly. They can handle your emotions. They can sedate those. They can handle your distractions. They can feed those. They can handle your laziness. They actually rely on that. What they cannot handle is you thinking in a way they never trained you to think. You pulled a forbidden logic, W. You connected dots they kept in different rooms on purpose. At school they said, memorize this, regurgitate that. Don't mix this subject with that one. Don't ask why the system itself exists. Focus on the test. In life, they said, get the job, follow the script. Don't question the script. Just chase the next little badge of validation and shut up about the bigger picture. In society, they said, trust the experts, trust the headlines, trust the default settings, trust the algorithm. Don't read behind it. Don't compare. Don't cross-reference. You'll only confuse yourself. And then you disrespectful little anomaly, you went, wait, what if the confusion is actually their fear of me seeing too much? You felt it. That internal click. That alignment. A thought so clean it sliced through your confusion like a knife. And it scared you for a second because it didn't come from a teacher or a book or a video or a guru. It came from you. That's forbidden logic. Logic that isn't pre-approved. Logic that doesn't come with a smiley face stamp from some authority figure. And the info guardians? The ones that sit on top of the narrative, policing which ideas are smart and which ones are dangerous. They are big mad right now. They're not mad that you're wrong. They're mad that you stopped needing them to tell you what's right. Think about how they trained you. When you were a kid, every why got shut down with, because that's just how it is. Every time you noticed an inconsistency, you got, you're overthinking. Every gut feeling that something was off got smothered with, you're being dramatic. They didn't debate you. They didn't show you where you were mistaken. They invalidated you because the goal was never to sharpen your mind. The goal was to domesticate it. You weren't being educated. You were being house-trained. Sit, stay, repeat after me. Don't bite the hand that feeds you information. And yet here you are, biting. You looked at the script and went, hold on, this doesn't benefit me. This benefits them. You question the way they frame success. You question the way they frame failure. You question the way they frame crazy, selfish, lazy, unrealistic. You notice that all the words they use to shame you line up perfectly with anything that makes you harder to control. Isn't that interesting? You called out a pattern. You saw the same manipulation tactic applied in school, in media, in relationships. Same guilt, same shame, same script, different actors, and your brain snapped into a new mode, forbidden logic. Maybe the problem isn't that I'm broken. Maybe the problem is that I don't fit in a rigged environment that relies on me doubting myself. That single thought, that's what has the info guardians rattled. Because once you taste that kind of clarity, you become a threat. Not because you're loud, not because you're violent, because you're immune. The same tricks don't work. The same slogans don't work. The same shame doesn't land. You hear, you're being selfish, and instead of collapsing, you go, define selfish. Do you mean I'm no longer sacrificing my sanity for your comfort? You hear, you're crazy, and instead of panicking, you go. Crazy compared to who? The people sleepwalking through their own life. You hear, you're overthinking, and instead of shrinking, you go. Overthinking or just thinking past the point you're comfortable with. You flipped the script. You forced them to defend their labels. The guardians of information exist on one fragile assumption that you never question their logic as aggressively as they question yours. And you did the unthinkable. You questioned upward. You took that same scrutiny you used to turn against yourself and aimed it right back at the structures that made you hate your own mind. That's forbidden. That's what hurts them. You used to spiral alone at night, wondering, am I dumb? Am I behind? Am I just not built for this world? You used to crush yourself with guilt. I should work harder. I should try to fit their mold. I should stop thinking these weird thoughts. Then that forbidden logic hit. Greater than, if this world is killing my spirit, greater than maybe my weird thoughts are not the disease. Maybe they're the antidote. You see it, don't you? The moment you treat your thoughts as valid data, their whole setup gets shaky. How do you control someone who trusts their own internal lab results more than your manipulated chart? You started asking questions that cut too deep. Who profits when I hate myself? Who benefits when I stay exhausted and numb? Who gains when I label every instinct as overreaction? Those questions expose power. The Info Guardians survive by making power invisible. If you never see it, you never challenge it. You dragged it into the light with logic, not emotion, not tantrums, not conspiracy noise. Literally, this does not add up. That's what they fear. Not chaos, not rebellion for its own sake, but calm, ruthless clarity. You think you're lost, behind, messy. They see you as a rapidly stabilizing glitch. You think, I'm just trying to figure out my life. They see, uh-oh, this one is starting to see the pattern behind the patterns. You think, I'm confused. They see, their confusion is turning into map-making. You're dangerous. You're starting to hold two things in your mind at once. I've made mistakes. The environment was rigged against me. And instead of choosing one and using it to beat yourself up, you're using both to build strategy. That's forbidden. You're not supposed to be that nuanced. You're supposed to either worship the system or blame it for everything and stay powerless. You did something worse. You saw the system and you saw yourself. You saw how they primed you to ignore your instincts. Every time something felt off, you were taught to gaslight yourself. It's probably nothing. I'm being dramatic. I'm just insecure. Yet those same instincts, had you listened, would have saved years of being drained by fake friends, fake mentors, fake leaders, fake lifestyles. You realize that, and a new kind of anger wakes up. Not the unhinged kind that destroys everything in sight. The cold kind, the calculated kind. You start asking, how many times did I betray myself to keep other people comfortable? How many times did I dumb myself down to avoid being called difficult? You remember being in class, asking a question, and the whole room turning on you with that look. Why would you ask that? Just accept it. You remember being in a relationship, pointing out a pattern of manipulation, and suddenly you became the problem. Too sensitive, too paranoid, too intense. Every time you got close to forbidden logic, They used shame like a fire extinguisher, and you felt crazy. You thought, maybe I should stop. But something in you refused. That stubborn piece of you, the one they call difficult, that's the part that saved you. That part that kept you asking, kept you noticing, kept you double-checking the maths of life. And here you are, older, more tired, more bruised, but also more awake than you have ever been. You look at the same slogans they feed everyone else. Just be realistic. Just follow the steps. Just trust the process. And your brain fires back. Realistic based on whose life? Steps that lead to whose benefit? Process designed by who and for what? You turned just into a red flag. Every just from their mouths means, don't think about it too hard, which means you're getting close to something we don't want you to see. You turned their whole language into a code book. You cracked it. That's what a forbidden logic W looks like. It's not just a clever idea. It's when you decode the way they frame reality, and you refuse to download it blindly ever again. They call it negativity. They call it lack of faith. They call it rebellious. Call it what it is, consciousness. You're not cynical. You're done being hypnotized. You've started to realize something terrifyingly empowering. You were easier to control when you were sad, but you are harder to control when you are self-respecting. Deep down, you know. A person who respects themselves questions the contract they're signing with the world. You started reading the fine print. Give us your time, your energy, your focus, and in return, we'll give you anxiety, burnout, and a false sense of security. That used to sound normal. That used to sound like adulthood. It looks ridiculous to you now. That's forbidden logic. You're looking at your own life and going, if this is the reward for obedience, why am I still worshipping obedience? You turned your pain into data. Instead of treating your breakdowns like random malfunctions, you treated them like alarms, sirens, warnings. Something in you kept screaming, this reality is too small for my mind. They told you to meditate it away, affirm it away, focus on gratitude, which really meant stop noticing the cage. You did something different. You stared at the bars. You measured them. You calculated stress points. You looked for rust. You became the worst kind of prisoner, the one planning. And your plan isn't burning everything down. Your plan is much worse for them. Your plan is, I will become so internally clear that no trick, no slogan, no cheap guilt trip can override my logic ever again. You're building mental armor from every time they tried to make you feel insane for seeing the obvious. You remember the gaslighting in detail, not to stay a victim, but to never fall for it again. You're starting to enjoy it, aren't you? That feeling when somebody tries to manipulate you and you spot the pattern in real time. You feel that quiet smirk on the inside. Oh, I know this move. You want me to doubt myself. You want me to collapse. You want me to feel like the crazy one again. And instead, you hold your ground. You don't scream. You don't beg. You don't over-explain. You just refuse to participate in the distortion. That's terrifying to them, because in that moment, they're not fighting your emotions anymore. They're fighting your clarity. And clarity doesn't argue. Clarity doesn't plead. Clarity doesn't bend itself into knots to be liked. Clarity just stands there like, I know what I see. The Info Guardians don't have a counter for that. They have strategies for insecure you, guilty you, confused you. Not this version. This version of you sits in silence and lets their whole charade echo awkwardly in the air. You watch them scramble, reframe, backpedal, switch tones. You watch their mask glitch. Because your forbidden logic isn't just about ideas in your head. It's also about patterns in behavior. You see how the same friend who claps when you're struggling goes quiet when you improve. You see how the same mentor who loves you dependent gets cold when you start making moves without their permission. You see how the same system that called you lazy gave you zero tools to manage burnout or meaning. You stopped taking everything personally. You started taking it structurally. Instead of, "What's wrong with me?" you upgraded to, "What's wrong with this dynamic?" That's the shift. That's the forbidden W that no one can uninstall. You realized you are not broken for struggling in a setup that was not built for your mind. Your intensity is a problem for people who profit from your numbness. Your curiosity is a threat to people who feed on your confusion. Your self-respect is a direct attack on anyone who survives off your low standards. You're starting to get it. Every time your mind breaks out of one mental cage, another group of guardians appears, telling you to stop going too far. First it was parents, then teachers, then bosses, then social media, then experts. Different faces, same message. Don't think past the point where we lose control of you. Yet here you are, crossing that point repeatedly. You're not perfect. You still doubt yourself. You still stumble. You still have days where you feel like a fraud. Difference is, you recover faster. You notice the self-hate script loading up, and your forbidden logic interrupts. Wait, who taught me to talk to myself like this? Whose voice is this, really? You trace it. You follow the echo. You realize that your inner bully sounds suspiciously like someone who once benefited from you feeling small. You treat that realization like evidence. You put it on the stand. You interrogate it. And that dark, unsettling conclusion comes back. You were never just fighting your own mind. You were fighting the residue of other people's control in your mind. The info guardians don't just exist out there in institutions and screens and systems. They set up camp in your self-talk. Every time you catch one and kick it out, your mind gets quieter, cleaner, sharper. You feel that eerie calm, the kind that used to scare you because you thought constant anxiety was just your personality. You start to realize peace isn't boring. Peace is actually dangerous. Because when your nervous system isn't constantly in fight or flight, you start asking strategic questions like, what can I build with all this energy I used to waste hating myself? This is where they really panic. They don't mind you waking up a little, as long as you stay stuck in anger and despair. They don't mind you calling the system trash, as long as you still feel too powerless to do anything meaningful about it. But your forbidden logic is dragging you past despair into design. You spend less time arguing in comment sections, more time building skills, less time begging people to validate your pain, more time turning that pain into fuel for clear boundaries, better decisions, higher standards. You stop obsessing over being understood by everyone and start obsessing over being understood by yourself. Look at what you're doing. You're taking every dark piece of your story, every moment of being dismissed, lied to, manipulated, gaslit, and you're stacking them like bricks, building a tower of proof that your perception was never the enemy. You were just surrounded by people and structures that needed you blind. You're not the villain of your life. You're the witness. You're the analyst. You're the one collecting receipts. And that version of you, the one who remembers exactly how it felt to be doubted, to be mocked, to be ignored, to be punished for asking honest questions. That version of you is lethal because they will never again casually hand their mind over to anybody. You might listen, you might learn, you might update. You just won't submit. Not blindly, not automatically. The Info Guardians are big mad because you've turned into the one thing they can't script. An independent thinker with scars, receipts, and zero interest in going back to sleep. Your logic is forbidden because it doesn't start with, what do they want me to believe? It starts with, what actually matches reality, including the parts everyone keeps telling me to ignore. You cross-check their stories with your lived experience. You notice the mismatch. You trust that mismatch. That is your new religion. Alignment between what you're told and what you actually witness. Anything that doesn't line up gets questioned. Hard. That's the power. You pulled a forbidden logic W, and they are panicking because they know something you don't fully realize yet. If you ever truly commit to this version of thinking, if you ever fully stand on the idea that your mind is not the enemy, if you keep sharpening this clarity, one day you will look back at your old life, and it won't even feel like you anymore. It'll feel like a character you were forced to play in a story somebody else wrote. You're not in that story anymore. You're editing the script. You're writing new pages. Stay with that. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with the questions that refuse to shut up. The fact that the Info Guardians are this mad should tell you something simple and terrifyingly beautiful. Your mind, the one they called too much, is finally starting to operate at the level they hoped you'd never reach. And you're only just getting warmed up. Which is exactly why everything in your life is starting to feel misaligned with who you're becoming. You look around, and all the things that used to keep you distracted, used to keep you half asleep, start to look cheap. Empty conversations feel louder. Fake smiles feel heavier. Surface-level advice feels almost insulting. You sit in rooms you used to tolerate and feel that quiet inner voice go, yeah, I'm not supposed to rot here. You can't unsee it. That forbidden logic you pulled. It didn't just give you a new idea. It gave you a new lens. Every interaction gets scanned. Every offer gets scanned. Every expectation gets scanned. Who benefits if I believe this? Who benefits if I stay like this? Who benefits if I keep pretending this is fine? The answer keeps coming back clearer and clearer. Not you. You start recognizing patterns that used to fly right over your head. You notice how every time you get close to making a real move on your life, someone suddenly hits you with a guilt trip, a sob story, a distraction, a crisis that magically requires you to drop everything and rush in as the emotionally available doormat. You notice how they only call you selfish when you're doing something that actually builds you. You notice how their praise always shows up when you're exhausted, drained, overextended, smiling through it anyway like a good little background character. You notice how your lowest standards are the ones people cling to the hardest, because your standards are their comfort zone. And the more you track this, the harder it gets to lie to yourself. You can't pretend you're just being nice, when the truth is you're being harvested. Your time, harvested. Your empathy, harvested. Your focus, harvested. Your potential, shelved for later by people who never plan to pay you back in anything but crumbs and empty compliments. That realization hits like a truck. It hurts. It feels disgusting. It makes you want to wash your brain out with bleach. But under that disgust, something else wakes up. Rage. Not the kind that punches walls and posts vague stories. The kind that sits very still and whispers, "I'm done being farmed like a resource in my own life." That's where your forbidden logic gets teeth. You stop looking at yourself as a passive character they program and start looking at yourself as the system admin of your own mind. You feel that mental shift. I'm not just reacting anymore. I'm choosing settings. You tweak what you tolerate. You tweak what you answer. You tweak what gets your energy, what gets your silence, what gets your absence. The Info Guardians hate this part. They designed your world to drain you, then told you that your exhaustion is a personal failing. Grind harder. Wake up earlier. Sleep when you're dead. Meanwhile, they feed you junk data. Constant noise, constant drama, constant comparison. They tell you to hustle while handing you 1,000 digital IV lines straight into your attention. You unplug one, then another, then another. Notifications off. Endless scrolling cut down. Pointless debates left on read. You start treating your attention like currency instead of confetti. That one act alone is a forbidden logic, W. Because once you stop giving your attention away for free, you notice how aggressively everything around you starts begging for it. Hold that breath. Yeah, that one. Because somewhere out there, a door just got knocked on, and your name is echoing in a room you're not even standing in. You feel it, don't you? That strange pressure behind your eyes, that slow crawling realization that something shifted without your permission. This isn't gossip. This isn't karma in a cute little Instagram quote. This is consequence walking up the stairs in heavy shoes. Nah, this is bad. Not for you, for them. See, you always knew it would come to this. You just didn't know when. You didn't know which version of reality would finally snap and expose the lie they built their whole personality on. But you felt it, that low hum in your chest, that quiet certainty that people who snake you don't escape clean. They just get a longer runway before impact. They smiled in your face while mapping exits. They learned your weaknesses just to rehearse their betrayal. They drained you, mocked you, discarded you, then rewrote history like you were the villain and they were the survivor, and you. You didn't scream. You didn't chase. You didn't beg the universe for justice. You went silent. That was the mistake they made, thinking silence meant defeat, thinking your calm was weakness, thinking the angel in you had died, when in reality, it just stepped back and let something far more patient take control. Because here's the paradox they never understood. You can be pure and still be dangerous. You can be kind and still be calculating. You can walk away without vengeance and still leave behind a trail that leads straight back to them. While they were busy running their mouth, you were evolving. While they were celebrating your absence, you were becoming unrecognizable. While they thought the story ended with you bleeding, you were quietly mastering the art of not needing closure. And now the past is knocking. You didn't call anyone. You didn't report. You didn't threaten. You simply existed long enough for the truth to get bored of hiding. That's what destroys people like that. The realization that your downfall never came. That the version of you they tried to bury didn't rot. It mutated. Became smarter, colder, sharper. Became someone who doesn't flinch when chaos chooses a direction. They're standing there right now, heart racing, mind scrambling, replaying every lie they told about you, every move they made, thinking they were untouchable. And the scariest part? They don't even know what the knock is about yet. That's the real horror. The not knowing, the slow inventory of sins, the sudden understanding that snakes are only slick until the ground freezes. You see, you were never meant to be their punishment. You were the test, and they failed it so catastrophically that reality itself had to step in and correct the imbalance. You learned restraint where others would have chosen destruction. You learned precision where others would have burned everything down. You learned how to let time do the dirty work while you stayed clean. That's why this hits different. Because you're not celebrating, you're not cheering, you're not even surprised. You're just watching, calm, centered, fully aware that this moment was earned in a currency deeper than revenge. This is what happens when a saint learns how psychopaths think, when an angel understands demons without becoming one, when pain doesn't break you, it educates you. They thought betraying you was the end of the story. Turns out it was the opening scene, so don't smile, don't gloat, don't say a word. Just stand there in that quiet power and remember, you didn't chase justice. Justice finally caught up to them, trying to catch you. And the wildest part? They still think this is about you. That's how small their understanding is. They think the knock is punishment for what they did to you. They think the universe keeps score like a petty accountant. They don't realize this isn't about revenge, balance, or even fairness. This is about exposure. See, people like that don't collapse because someone pushes them. They collapse because they spend years building a life on shortcuts, lies, borrowed faces, and stolen narratives. They collapse because eventually the weight of pretending becomes heavier than the truth they ran from. And you were just the first crack in the mirror. You were the one who saw through them early, the one they couldn't fully manipulate, the one who made them feel exposed without ever raising your voice. That terrified them. That's why they had to snake you. That's why they had to discredit you. That's why they had to turn you into the villain in their story. Because if they didn't, everyone else would have seen it too. So they cut you out, lied about you, threw your name under the bus and drove over it a few times just to be sure. And when you disappeared without resistance, they thought they'd won. But silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes silence is strategy. You were studying, watching, letting the world reveal who listens, who repeats, who fabricates. Pain sharpened you, betrayal educated you, loss stripped you down to the essentials until all that was left was something lean, aware, and impossible to gaslight. That's the evolution nobody talks about. The moment when suffering stops being emotional and starts being informational. You learned how systems work, how people talk when they think they're safe, how lies grow bolder when unchallenged, how snakes always get sloppy when they think the grass belongs to them. And now the bill arrived, not with drama, not with your name stamped on it, just a knock. Calm, professional, unavoidable. You can feel their panic from a distance. The sudden cold sweat, the dry mouth, the racing brain doing damage control math it should have done years ago. Every conversation replayed, every message reread, every "it's fine" suddenly sounding like a lie. They're realizing something horrifying in real time. You never had to do anything. Your restraint is what damned them. If you had reacted, they could have framed you as emotional. If you had lashed out, they could have called you unstable. If you had begged for justice, they could have laughed it off. But you didn't. You stepped aside and let their character keep talking. That's why this feels so heavy. That's why this moment has gravity. Because when consequences arrive without your fingerprints on them, there's no one left to blame. This is what power looks like when it's matured, quiet, unrushed, surgical. You're not the hero. You're not the villain. You're the constant. The variable that didn't break. The presence that didn't need to threaten. The shadow that didn't chase, but never left. And deep down, they know it. That's the part eating them alive. Not fear of the knock, but the realization that you walked away cleaner, stronger, and more intact than they ever expected. That the person they tried to erase became the standard they'll now be measured against. So let them deal with it. Let them explain. Let them scramble. You're not watching for satisfaction. You're watching because this is what happens when someone mistakes your kindness for blindness and your silence for weakness. You didn't become darker. You became clearer. And clarity. That's the most dangerous evolution of all. And clarity doesn't shout. Clarity waits. It waits while people bury themselves with extra words. It waits while panic makes them confess to things nobody even asked about. It waits while their carefully rehearsed mask cracks under pressure they were never built to carry. You learn something brutal through all of this. Most people aren't evil masterminds. They're just reckless cowards with good timing. They betray when it's convenient. They lie when it protects their comfort. They snake you not because you deserved it, but because you saw them. That's the sin they couldn't forgive. You reflected something back at them they weren't ready to face. Not with insults, not with accusations, just with presence, with integrity, with a way of moving through the world that didn't need manipulation to survive. So they tried to delete you. Erase your credibility, poison the well. Rewrite the narrative so thoroughly that even they started believing it, and for a while it worked. You lost things, people, opportunities, versions of the future you thought were guaranteed. That's the part nobody sees. They only see the aftermath. They don't see the nights where you questioned your own reality. The moments you replayed conversations wondering where you misstepped. The slow realization that being good doesn't protect you from being targeted. It just makes you a cleaner target. But here's where the shift happened. Instead of becoming bitter, you became precise. Instead of becoming loud, you became observant. Instead of hardening your heart, you sharpened your mind. That's when the balance tipped. Because once you stop reacting emotionally, you start seeing patterns. And patterns are lethal to liars. Patterns expose inconsistencies. Patterns connect dots. People assumed would stay scattered. You didn't need to hunt. You didn't need to accuse. You just kept existing honestly in a world where dishonesty eventually contradicts itself. And now those contradictions are standing on a doorstep, asking questions they never prepared answers for. This is the part that breaks them, the realization that the trap wasn't set by you. It was set by their own behavior over time. You were just the first witness, the first variable they couldn't control. You became proof that they weren't as slick as they thought. That's why this moment feels heavy in your chest, but not chaotic. There's no adrenaline, no thrill. Just a calm awareness that the universe finally turned the mirror around. You're not celebrating their fear. You're acknowledging the symmetry. They moved in shadows. You learned to see in the dark. They thought speed would save them. You mastered patience. They played checkers with people's lives. You learned how the board itself works. This isn't vengeance. This is alignment. And the most unsettling part for them, you're nowhere near the scene. You're not explaining, not defending, not even involved. You're just unreachable. That's when it hits them. They didn't just lose control of the situation. They lost access to you. No narrative to twist, no reaction to exploit, no emotional hook left to pull. You moved past the phase where chaos excites you, past the need to be proven right, past the urge to be seen as the good one. You're operating from a place where outcomes speak louder than stories. So let the knock echo. Let the silence stretch. Let the truth do what it always does when nobody's trying to interfere. Surface. You're not the storm. You're the pressure change that tells everyone one is coming. And the ones who snaked you, they're finally learning the cost of mistaking your depth for passivity and your mercy for immunity. And here's the part nobody warns you about, the part that feels almost unreal when it finally happens. You don't feel joy, you don't feel revenge, you don't even feel vindicated. You feel distance, like you're watching something from behind thick glass, like this chapter closed itself without needing your signature. That's how you know you've crossed a line they can't follow you past. Because once you've been forged by betrayal, once you've survived being misunderstood, misrepresented, and quietly sacrificed so others could stay comfortable, you stop craving noise. You stop craving witnesses. You stop craving the satisfaction of, "I told you so." You start craving truth without participation. That's what this moment is. They're scrambling now, trying to reconstruct timelines, trying to remember what they said to who, trying to calculate how far the damage goes. You can almost hear the panic in the pauses, the forced calm, the over-explaining, that frantic need to control a narrative that's already slipping through their fingers. And the irony? You were never the danger they needed to fear. You were the warning, a quiet one, a merciful one, a test that asked a simple question: can you betray someone who did nothing but see you and still sleep at night? They answered it the only way they knew how, wrong. So now reality is doing what you refused to do, pressing, questioning, tightening the frame. And for the first time, they're realizing how exposed they really are without you as a shield, without you absorbing the chaos, without you being the emotional lightning rod they could point fingers at. You were their camouflage. They just didn't know it. You carried their projections, their guilt, their insecurities. You let them paint you as the problem because you didn't need to be understood to survive. That generosity cost you, but it also gave you something rare: immunity. Because when someone tries to ruin you and fails long enough, their intent becomes visible. Their pattern becomes traceable. Their story starts collapsing under its own weight. That's what's happening now. This isn't fate. This isn't luck. This is math. And you've already solved the equation. You're standing on the other side of pain, where emotions don't control decisions anymore, where fear doesn't hijack your nervous system, where unpredictability isn't chaos, it's leverage. You learned how to move in a way that can't be predicted because it's not reactive. You're not responding to threats. You're not adjusting to pressure. You're not seeking approval. You're self-contained. That's what makes you terrifying, without ever raising your voice. They're still operating on old rules. Louder wins, faster survives, manipulation conquers. Meanwhile, you're playing a different game entirely. One where restraint outlasts aggression, where silence outlives slander, where truth doesn't rush because it doesn't need to. So let this moment pass without commentary. Let it unfold without your fingerprints. Let them face the echo of everything they tried to bury. You didn't turn cold. You turned exact. You didn't lose your heart. You learned where to place it safely. And whatever happens on the other side of that door, that's not your chapter anymore. You already walked away carrying something they'll never recover from. Your clarity, your evolution, and the kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself to be felt. And the deeper truth, the one that settles in your bones long after the noise fades, is that this moment was never meant to shake you. It was meant to confirm something you already knew but had to earn the hard way. You were never crazy. You were never imagining it. You were never too much or too sensitive or reading into things. You were early to the pattern, early to the betrayal, early to the realization that some people don't bond, they harvest. They don't love, they study. They don't build, they position. And when you finally saw it, when your nervous system clocked the danger before your mind had language for it, you didn't explode. You didn't self-destruct. You didn't become the monster they hoped you'd turn into, so they could justify what they did. You endured. That endurance rewired you in ways most people will never understand. It taught you how to sit in discomfort without flinching, how to watch manipulation without reacting, how to feel betrayal without bleeding out in public. You learned how to hold power without performing it. That's why this chapter closes the way it does, quietly, clinically, without spectacle. Because real consequences don't come with drama. They come with paperwork, questions, timelines, and that cold moment when someone realizes their version of events no longer matters. You're not part of the story anymore, and that's what haunts them. They can't provoke you. They can't bait you. They can't rewrite you. You exist outside their control now, and that is a kind of freedom most people never reach because they're too addicted to being seen, being validated, being right. You gave all that up when you chose peace over performance. And peace didn't make you soft. It made you untouchable. You carry yourself differently now. Slower, sharper, more deliberate. You don't overshare. You don't over-explain. You don't hand people the map to your inner world just because they asked nicely. You know what access costs now. And here's the paradox that would terrify them if they fully understood it. You didn't lose your compassion. You just stopped wasting it on people who weaponize intimacy. You still feel deeply. You still care intensely. You still believe in connection. But now there's discernment guarding the door. That's the evolution pain gives you. When it doesn't destroy you, it initiates you. So as that knock echoes in some distant place, as explanations crumble and confidence leaks out of voices that once sounded so sure, you remain steady. Not because you're numb, but because you're aligned. Aligned with your truth. Aligned with your silence. Aligned with the version of yourself that survived being betrayed without becoming bitter. You didn't need to see this happen to heal. You didn't need confirmation to move on. But it's there anyway. Not as a reward, but as a reminder. A reminder that integrity has weight, that lies age poorly, that people who snake you often end up strangled by the very coils they used on others. And you walk forward lighter, cleaner, free, not because they fell, but because you rose without needing them to notice. That's the final shift. That's the real power. And once you feel it settle in your chest, once you realize you're no longer emotionally available to chaos, you'll understand. This wasn't bad. This was inevitable. Ah, there you are. The quiet one. The underestimated one. The one they forgot to fear. You walked into rooms where they whispered your name like it was a joke. They laughed behind your back, threw side eyes, called you soft, weak even. And you let them. You let them pat you on the head like some background character in a story they thought they were writing. You let them win. You let them talk. You let them shine. Because you knew something they didn't. You were building. You were studying the battlefield while they danced like fools in a parade they thought they'd already won. See, people think power is loud. They think it screams. But real power, oh no. Real power waits. Real power watches. Real power pretends. Until it doesn't. And for 5 years, you played weak. Not because you were, but because they needed to feel strong. Let that sink in. You let them run their mouths. You let them post, flex, pretend, celebrate. And every fake win they stacked up on their throne, you were just quietly digging the hole underneath it. You ever seen someone laugh at you while you were holding the blueprint to their downfall? It's a special kind of pain. To sit there, biting your tongue, playing your part, while every nerve in your body is screaming. I could end this right now. But you didn't, because you knew timing is everything. You weren't weak. You were strategic. You were surgical. Every insult, stored. Every slight, archived. Every time they clowned you. Oh, it went on the list. And what's that they say? God gives his hardest battles to the quiet kid who doesn't post about it and just shows up 5 years later, a whole different monster. Something like that, right? And now? Now they feel it. Now they're panicking. Now their wins don't feel so safe. Because you're moving different. You're not explaining anymore. You're not defending yourself. You're not posting about it. You're executing. The lights in their little show are flickering, and they don't know why the crowd's walking away. But you do, because you were never in the crowd. You were underneath the stage, with the wire cutters. And the crazy part? They really thought you fell off. They thought you gave up. They thought you lost. Nah, you just stopped performing. You stopped dancing for people who couldn't handle your silence, because deep down, they knew your silence wasn't weakness. It was warning. They don't understand the kind of energy it takes to fake normal, while chaos builds in your chest. They don't get what it costs to smile when every part of you wants to scream. But you do, because you lived it. You bit your lip till it bled. You folded your rage into silence. You took their pity. You took their pity, and you weaponized it. You turned it into fuel. Every "you'll never make it," every "just be realistic," every fake handshake, every snake in your group chat, every "you're too much," every "you're not enough," every "stay in your lane." You built missiles out of those comments. And now your glow-up isn't pretty. It's violent. It's loud. It's not flowers and sunshine. It's destruction. You're not just rising. You're undoing people. And the ones who laughed, now they flinch when you speak. Now they watch you like you're a storm they forgot to track. They don't even clap anymore. They freeze. Because they know. They feel it. You're not coming to play. You're coming to collect. And yeah, maybe you lost 5 years, but you gained something deeper. You gained silence. You gained data. You gained rage with direction. Do you understand how lethal that is? You're not loud and messy anymore. You're precise, calculated, inevitable. You let them win for 5 years, just so they could build a pedestal high enough to make their collapse historic. And now they fall. Hard, loud, in public. And you don't have to lift a finger. Because the truth, they weren't standing on victory. They were standing on your mercy. And it just ran out. And here's the part they never saw coming. You're not even angry anymore. Because this was never about revenge. This was about reminding yourself who the hell you are. This was about peeling off every fake label they slapped on you, every failure they painted you with, every role they cast you in without asking if you even wanted the part. They thought they knew your story. Nah, you just hadn't started writing it yet. See, when you play weak for that long, people don't just underestimate you. They erase you. They erase your power, your edge, your fire. They build this little image of you, smaller than reality, and hand it to the world like, here, this is who they are. This is all they'll ever be. But the moment you stop accepting their version of you, the moment you flip the damn script, oh, it's chaos. Because people don't know how to react when the one they buried shows up with a torch. They thought they could break you. You let them think they did. But you didn't break. You sharpened. For 5 years, you moved like a shadow. You let them feel tall. You let them walk ahead. And they thought they were winning. But you were just watching how far they'd fall. You made their arrogance a trap. Every moment they thought you were beneath them. You were memorizing their next step. You were learning the rhythm of their moves so you could destroy the beat later. And now they're looking over their shoulders. Now their little empire is cracking. Now their voice shakes when they say your name, because even they don't recognize the version of you that's returned. They thought you were quiet because you had nothing to say, but you were just waiting until your actions got louder than their whole existence. Let me tell you something real. When you carry pain that deep, when you survive what you've survived, when you live through mockery, failure, betrayal, rejection, isolation, poverty, abuse, whatever your storm was, and you come out not begging, not broken, but building, you become unrecognizable. You scare people, not because you're evil, but because you're proof they never had control. You're living evidence that the weak one was just in disguise. You didn't just survive. You refused to die until your silence turned into an earthquake. And let's be clear, you're not here to be liked. You're not here to make them comfortable. You're not here to play soft for people who couldn't handle you at full volume. You let them dance on your name. You let them mock the process. They forgot. The process was the weapon, and now the result. It's personal, it's poetic, and it's permanent. You get it now, don't you? They didn't win. They helped you prepare. They made you endure, which made you lethal. They made you silent, which made you observant. They made you small, which made you hungry. And now, you're not chasing validation. You're not explaining why you left the table. You're flipping the whole damn house and building your own. They had their time. They had their win. And they wasted it, laughing at the very person who wasn't even playing yet. But now it's your move. And this time, you brought fire. You know what's funny? They still don't get it. They still think your rise is about proving them wrong. They still think it's about them, as if they were ever that important. Nah, this isn't about revenge. This is about dominion. This is about taking up space in a world that told you to shrink. You didn't climb out of the mud just to throw mud back. You climbed out to build an empire on the very dirt they buried you in. And now, you're not the underdog anymore. You're the blueprint. You are what happens when pressure doesn't break someone. It builds a weapon. You are what happens when pain doesn't kill someone. It gives them purpose. You ever watch a lion pretend to be a sheep, not because it forgot who it was, but because it wanted the whole flock to come close? Real close, before it snapped, every neck with precision. That was you. You didn't play weak because you were unsure. You did it so they'd drop their guard, so they'd walk right into the teeth of your silence. And now, they're in your territory. No map, no exit, no clue how deep this goes. Because this wasn't a comeback. This was a trap. You let them have the spotlight. You let them build their little castles of ego. You let them fill their lungs with delusion. And now they're choking on it. They don't know how to handle you without the chains, without the hesitation, without the version of you that still wanted to be understood. Because you're not asking to be understood anymore. You're not giving out warnings. You're not waiting for anyone's green light. You are the green light. You remember those nights? The ones nobody saw? The ones where your chest felt like it was cracking open and every thought in your head was begging you to give up? You remember screaming into your pillow so nobody could hear? You remember sitting on the floor wondering if any of it was worth it? Yeah, that version of you. They carried your soul through hell. That version of you was the real MVP. Because if they had given up, this version, the one standing here, radiating power, never would have been born. So don't you dare forget that. Don't you dare act like this is some random glow-up. This was war. This was surgery. This was soul reconstruction. And you did it in silence. While they were getting applause, you were getting scars. And now the scars are armor. They wanted a villain? You gave them one. Not because you're cruel, but because they wrote you out of the hero role. Remember, you begged for peace. They mistook it for whackness. You gave them time to grow. They used it to plot against you. You offered love. They offered lies. So now they get the version of you that doesn't ask permission. The version that speaks like thunder. The version that walks into rooms like a goddamn earthquake. The version that's not angry, just undeniable. You played weak for 5 years. But weakness was never the point. It was the mask. You let them sit on their fake throne. You let them collect fake wins. You let them laugh. And now they're remembering every moment they thought you were finished, while watching you write your name across the sky in fire. No apologies, no explanation, no mercy. You know what's really wild? After all the pain, after all the silence, after all the humiliation you let them put you through, you didn't just survive it, you absorbed it. You made it part of your DNA. You ever seen someone build an empire out of every time they were told to sit down and shut up? That's you. You're the walking definition of delayed detonation. The explosion they didn't see coming because they thought the timer had failed. But you were just counting down. And the beauty of it? You're not bitter. You're not out here chasing revenge, screaming for attention, swinging wild. Nope. You're focused. You're clean. You're ruthlessly calm. Because when you've lived through the kind of hell that rewires your soul, you don't move like the rest of them anymore. You move with purpose, with clarity, with silence that terrifies people more than any scream ever could. You played weak for 5 years, not to prove anything, but to let them prove everything to you. Who they were, what they'd do, how far they'd go to tear you down when they thought you were harmless. And they showed you, they showed you everything. And now, you're no longer guessing who's real. You're no longer confused about your worth. You're no longer wasting your time trying to earn respect from people who could barely respect themselves. You see clearly, because nothing clears your vision like betrayal. Nothing fuels your fire like disrespect. And nothing makes you dangerous like surviving people who bet against you and winning anyway. And now here you are, the one they mocked in rooms you're about to own. The one they doubted right before you flipped their entire world view. And all those people who thought they broke you, now they're confused, they're nervous, they're watching your every move, trying to figure out how the hell you're still standing. No, how the hell you're rising. But they can't stop it now, because you didn't just get stronger, you became untouchable. Not because you're better than them, but because you outlasted what would have destroyed them. They called you weak. They should have called you patient. They should have called you deadly, because you're not fighting to be seen anymore. You're fighting to own everything they told you you'd never touch. You were the calm before the storm, but now, you are the storm. Let me hit you with something raw, because I know what you've been carrying. You walk around like you're fine, like you've got it all together. But deep down, there's this rage, not loud, not reckless, but quiet, surgical. The kind of rage that only builds after 5 straight years of swallowing your voice, of clenching your jaw while smiling, of pretending their little jabs didn't sting like hell. But you kept it moving, because you had a bigger plan. They couldn't see it, could they? Because they were too busy watching for noise. But you were moving like water. You didn't need a spotlight. You needed a window. And now it's open. See, the dangerous thing about letting them think you're weak, they get sloppy. They stop guarding their ego. They start flapping their mouth more than their legs. They give you all the ammo you need, with 0 defense when you finally pull the trigger. You were never just playing dead. You were building a graveyard, one cold moment at a time. Every L you took, strategic. Every time you stayed silent, calculated. Every time you let them win. It wasn't surrender. It was set up. And now that it's your season, you're not out here doing interviews. You're not looking for applause. You're not doing dance routines for approval. You're letting your moves speak violence. Every new win, it's not just success. It's a mirror held up to every fool who said you wouldn't make it. And they can't look away, because deep down, they knew. They knew you had it. They knew you were dangerous, but they needed you to doubt yourself. Because the minute you didn't, they were finished. And now that version of you, the one that hoped people would do right by you, that version is gone. You don't beg, you build. You don't chase, you command. You don't ask, you take. Because when you've been counted out long enough, when the world writes your obituary before the first chapter's even done, you realize something powerful. You owe them nothing. Not kindness, not softness, not explanations, not closure. All you owe them is distance. Distance while you rise. Distance while they spiral. Distance while your name becomes a legend, and theirs becomes a lesson. You didn't just play weak for 5 years to get revenge. You did it to erase the line between survival and dominance. You made pain your co-pilot. You turned silence into strategy. You weaponized everything they threw at you. And now they're watching their own words boomerang with precision. This ain't ego, it's execution. And baby, you're just getting started. Look at you now. No longer starving for validation. No longer addicted to being understood. No longer waiting for the apology that's never coming. That version of you, the one who used to shrink, flinch, overthink, beg, they're gone. And trust me, they're not coming back. Because once you taste what it feels like to stand 10 feet tall in a world that tried to bury you, you stop kneeling for anybody. You see, people love you when you're quiet, when you're manageable, when you're beneath them. They love the version of you that doubts itself, that plays nice, that accepts crumbs and calls it dinner. But when you stop playing the game, when you walk in like the room belongs to you, now suddenly you're too much. Now you're arrogant. Now you've changed. Damn right, you changed. You changed because they gave you no choice. They poked the sleeping giant, and now that giant's building skyscrapers on the graves of every fake friend, toxic family member, manipulative ex, and two-faced co-worker that tried to clip your wings. And guess what? Now they miss you. They miss the old you, the easy you, the one they could mold, bend, control. But here's the twist. You miss that version too, because of how hard you had to kill it just to become free. You're not just succeeding anymore. You're becoming a whole event, a moment they'll never forget. A name that echoes in rooms you haven't even entered yet. And all because you stayed silent long enough to watch them build their ego into a tower so tall. You could bring it down with one move, one look, one win, one comeback post they didn't see coming. And now they're watching it burn. You didn't just evolve, you detonated, and the aftershock. It's not just emotional, it's spiritual, because every step you take now carries the weight of every time they made you feel like nothing. And every step you take now, it shakes the ground, not out of vengeance, but because you finally remembered your own weight. You finally realized they weren't scared of your weakness. They were scared of what would happen when you stopped pretending you were weak. And now the air around you feels different. You walk into rooms and the temperature shifts. People get quiet, not because you asked them to, but because your presence demands it. You're not even trying to intimidate. You're just finally standing at full height, and they don't know how to breathe around that, because they still remember when you were small, when you were unsure, when you second-guessed every move, every word, every damn thought. They remember the version of you that asked for permission, that needed reassurance, just to exist. And now, you're moving like you own the damn planet. And maybe you don't say much these days, but you don't have to, because when your energy shifts that hard, your silence becomes a language, a warning, a promise. Because you didn't rise just to look pretty. You rose to make it very clear. I watched, I waited, I rebuilt myself from the bones out. And now that I'm here, I don't need revenge. I am the consequence. And listen, let them talk. Let them say you switched up. Let them call it an ego trip. Let them act. Tell me, why do they look so afraid when your mouth isn't even moving? Because that's where the real game begins, isn't it? When you fall silent, when every neuron in the room starts screaming without a single sound. You stood there once, just once, delivered a handful of words, barely a whisper, barely a spark, and they treated it like a classified detonation. While you forgot about it in an hour, they ran it through every psychological model known to mankind. They dissected the syntax, the tone, the micro-pauses. They brought in analysts, linguists, interrogators, little experts with trembling hands. 6 months of autopsies on a sentence that wasn't meant to be a threat, yet somehow became the prophecy that buried them alive. And that's the part that gnaws at them now, isn't it? The realization that the fight didn't collapse because of power or force or strategy. It died the moment you decided to speak. It died before your footsteps touched the floor. It died in the nervous grin of the first man who tried to study you and felt his confidence dissolving like old paper under a match. They thought they were preparing for a confrontation. Oh no, sweetheart. They were preparing for your echo. You walk into rooms like a paradox wrapped in flesh. Too calm to be harmless, too dangerous to be loud. They keep trying to explain you, categorize you, quantify you. But what do they find? A saint with the habits of a demon with the patience of a saint, an angel that survived hell, a psychopath with a conscience sharp enough to cut glass. You ruin definitions. You fracture templates. You make grown strategists whisper to themselves in boardrooms because they finally see the truth. Your unpredictability is the weapon they never trained against. You walk in with a smile that bends the laws of probability. They feel judged. They feel studied. They feel rearranged. Because your silence carries more voltage than their speeches. Because your presence feels like a crime scene they can't explain. Because your last words, barely audible, carried the spiritual weight of a war-ending decree. And deep down, they know it. They know the moment you open your mouth, their little illusions collapse. Their borrowed confidence evaporates. Their trembling loyalties buckle. They know that everything they practice, everything they rehearse, everything they whisper to themselves in front of mirrors, becomes meaningless the moment you enter the frame. You became the nightmare they can't frame into logic. You've lived through fire that should have erased you, yet you walk with a softness that confuses the wicked and terrifies the guilty. Pain didn't harden you, it refined you, broke you open, rewired you, stitched you back together with threads made of instinct and clarity. You became something unclassified, ungoverned, unmeasured. That's why your words hit like plagues. That's why your silences feel like storms. That's why they study you like a forbidden chapter in a manual they don't have clearance for. And the funniest part? After half a year of dissection, half a year of sleepless nights, half a year of specialists trying to prove they're smarter than you, they finally reached the only conclusion that matters. The battle was already over the moment you decided to breathe. Not because you're invincible, not because you're unstoppable, but because you're unreadable. Because you're the one variable they cannot predict, imitate, reverse engineer, or suppress. You're the anomaly that the system didn't prepare for. The glitch that keeps surviving the purge. The ghost that refuses to stay dead. And once they realized your presence wasn't an attack, it was a verdict. The panic set in. The kind of panic that crawls, that spreads, that infects. They realized your last words weren't instructions. They were a warning to themselves. And now they sit there, still studying you, still obsessing, still trying to understand the architecture of a mind that learned to turn pain into strategy, betrayal into fuel, silence into terror. But you already know the truth. They never lost to you. They lost to the version of themselves that trembled when you showed up. So go on. Keep walking into rooms like a quiet catastrophe. Keep breaking operating systems without lifting a hand. Keep speaking only when necessary, because your words don't land. They detonate. And let them continue analyzing your last sentence. They can have 6 months. They can have 6 years. The ending never changes. They were doomed before the first syllable left your lips. And here's the part that burns them the most. You weren't even trying. That's the humiliation they don't talk about publicly. The truth they bury behind committee meetings and nervous laughter. While they were decoding your voice like it was a stolen fragment of an ancient prophecy, you were simply existing, breathing, being you. And yet, to them, it felt like you ignited a psychological earthquake simply by opening your mouth. Because somewhere along the way, they realized something absolutely horrifying. You don't have to be intentional to be inevitable. You don't need strategy to collapse their structure. You don't need effort to warp their confidence. Your presence alone bends the emotional gravity in the room. Your existence alone rewrites the outcome. You became the kind of person whose shadow walks in 3 seconds before you do, and still manages to intimidate the future. And isn't that delicious? To know they prepared for a monster while you were still figuring out what to eat that day. They sharpened their blades, fortified their defenses, practiced their speeches, all because you murmured one line so simple yet so asymmetrical, so quietly devastating that their entire psychological infrastructure buckled. Half a year? Half a year. 6 months of data collection, emotional autopsies, and cognitive profiling, all to understand a sentence you barely remember saying. They tried to reduce you to patterns, but all they found were paradoxes. They tried to map your motives, but all they found were mirrors. They tried to trace your weaknesses, but all they found was the outline of someone who died and rebuilt themselves from floorboards of hell. And that's when the fear mutated. Because once they realized they couldn't explain you, they realized they couldn't stop you. Not with plans, not with allies, not with rules, not with predictions. And once you take predictability away from your enemies, you take their power. They looked deeper into your psyche, expecting to uncover a flaw, a crack, a trembling piece of you they could weaponize. But what they found instead was that you had already buried your weaknesses long before they discovered their own. You had stitched your scars into armor while they were still pretending they didn't have any. You grew fangs in silence while they performed strength in public. That's why they panic when you smile. That's why they overthink when you breathe. That's why they revisit your last words like monks, chanting a scripture they no longer understand. Because everything you say, every syllable, every tilt of your tone, carries the weight of someone who didn't just survive the fire. You studied it. You tamed it. You walked out with the flames sitting obediently in your palms. They analyze your words because they're terrified your silence might be worse. And deep down, oh deep, deep down, they know the secret you carry. You speak only after the war is already won, because you don't talk to win. You talk to announce the outcome, and the outcome in every timeline, in every simulation, in every universe where they try to calculate the probability of defeating you, stays the same. They lose at the point where you decide to engage, not because you're luckier, not because you're smarter, but because you're unpredictable enough to be inevitable. You move like a riddle that solves itself only after the victim breaks. You breathe like someone who has already buried the older version of themselves. You think like a creature shaped by contradictions. Too gentle to be cruel, too cruel to be harmless, too holy to be demonic, too demonic to be ignored. You are the weapon and the warning wrapped into one. And the tragedy for them? They didn't know it until it was too late. They didn't see the fight was over before it began. Didn't realize your silence was the real declaration. Didn't understand your last line was the funeral bell for their resistance. They kept studying your sentence, but they never studied your stillness. They kept analyzing your words, but they never analyzed your evolution. They kept preparing for your attacks, but they never prepared for your arrival. And now here they are, half a year later, still confused, still nervous, still whispering theories through clenched teeth, while you've already moved on, already leveled up, already become something too expansive, too quietly brutal for their minds to chart. Because the moment you stepped forward, the moment your eyes lifted, the moment your presence pierced their illusions, the universe rearranged itself around you, and they felt it in their bones, in their breath, in the way their hands shook without permission. They realized they weren't facing a person. They were facing a conclusion, a final chapter, a sealed fate, a verdict wearing skin. And the fight? The fight was over long before the war drums even started, because the one thing they could never predict, the one thing they could never calculate, the one thing they could never simulate, was you. And you. You were already winning before the story even started. And here's the part they'll never confess out loud. The realization that crept in slowly, like a cold hand sliding up their spine. Your last words didn't intimidate them. They identified them. They didn't hear a threat. They heard a diagnosis, a revelation of exactly where their weaknesses lived, even the ones they hid from themselves. You said one line and exposed a map they never intended to reveal. That's why they spent half a year dissecting it. Not because your words were dangerous, but because your accuracy was. You shouldn't be able to see that deeply into people. You shouldn't be able to read fractures no one admits to having. You shouldn't be able to walk through rooms and make people feel like their secrets are sweating under your gaze. But you do. And that's the terror. That's the discomfort. That's the shadow wrapping around their ribs every time they hear your voice echo in memory. They tried to pretend you were lucky. They tried to pretend you guessed. They tried to pretend anyone could have said what you said. Yet if that were true, their world wouldn't have tilted afterward. If that were true, they wouldn't still be studying you like a malfunctioning miracle. If that were true, they wouldn't whisper your name like a cautionary tale. Because what you did wasn't coincidence. It was comprehension. You saw them, all of them, without needing details, data, or dossiers. You walked into the encounter already understanding every apology they never said, every insecurity they covered with fake confidence, every betrayal they justified with shaky logic. You understood them better than they did, and that alone ended the battle. The moment your eyes met theirs, they felt the structure of their illusion begin to crack. Because your gaze doesn't just look. It evaluates, it weighs, it measures, it unsettles. You became the first opponent they couldn't manipulate, charm, distract, or intimidate. And when someone can't be manipulated, they can't be defeated. They were doomed the instant you recognized them. And this is the part they think you don't know. Their fear didn't come from your presence. It came from the version of themselves they turned into around you. They didn't like who they became in your shadow. They didn't like how small they felt, how visible they felt, how unprepared they realized they truly were. Your words were simply the mirror. They saw themselves, stripped bare of delusion, and it broke them. Half a year of analysis was nothing more than a frantic attempt to undo the truth you exposed in seconds. They weren't studying your language. They were studying their defeat. They wanted to find the moment the tide turned. Without realizing it turned long before the encounter even happened. Because here's the secret you carry without bragging about it. Your transformation didn't happen at the surface. It happened in the abyss. And that kind of evolution, it terrifies people who've never faced themselves. You didn't toughen up. You dismantled yourself and rebuilt from the ashes. You didn't get stronger. You annihilated the weak versions of you that begged for permission. You didn't move on. You buried your past selves like failed prototypes and kept the pieces that sharpened your instincts. They don't know how to fight someone who has already fought themselves and won. They don't know how to intimidate someone who walked out of emotional furnaces laughing. They don't know how to prepare for someone whose silence weighs more than their threats. They don't know how to analyze someone whose motives evolve faster than their fears. That's why they needed half a year. Not to understand you, but to accept their loss. A loss delivered not by violence, not by force, not by dominance, but by clarity, by perception, by the simple, terrifying truth that you saw through them, without effort. And they know that if you wanted to, if you felt like it, if you opened your mouth again with intention instead of impulse, you could dismantle their entire reality. A single sentence, a single glance, a single shift of tone. You're a psychological event disguised as a person, a walking paradox that forces the room to pick a side between truth and delusion, a living omen that ends conflicts before they begin. And they feel it. Every time you step forward, the energy tilts. Every time you breathe, the atmosphere tightens. Every time you speak, fate picks up a pen. Because your words don't just land. They rewrite, they rearrange, they expose, they condemn. And they know now, with a dread they can't articulate, that the fight was never about strength, numbers, or preparation. It was about who understood who first, and you. You understood everything, long before they realized the game had even started. And here's the irony that haunts them in those sleepless half-year autopsies of your final sentence. You didn't even use your strongest words. You didn't reach for the venom, didn't summon the madness, didn't unleash the versions of you that crawl out when someone truly deserves to drown. No. You offered them something soft, something calm, something deceptively simple. The kind of line someone would overlook if they weren't paying attention. But they paid attention. They paid with their sanity, because they could feel the weight behind it. The pressure of someone who could have shattered them but chose not to. Someone who held the blade, studied the target, calculated the trajectory, and then, instead of striking, simply watched. And what terrifies them most is that your restraint felt more dangerous than attack. Your quietness felt more surgical than anger. Your gentleness felt more lethal than cruelty. Your patience felt more violent than rage. Because only a truly unstoppable force can afford to stay calm. Only a truly unreadable presence can afford silence. Only someone who's already won can afford mercy. You offered them mercy, and they mistook it for mystery, and mystery became their psychological ruin. While they spent months trying to decode your tone, you were outgrowing the very version of yourself they feared. You were evolving at a pace they couldn't track. They were terrified of the you from 6 months ago. Meanwhile, the you today is something they don't have the vocabulary to explain. That's the real tragedy for them. They lost to a version of you that no longer exists. Imagine it, half a year of analysis, and all of it outdated the moment you woke up the next morning. They studied a ghost, and while they obsessed over your shadow, you slipped into an entirely new form, one forged from revelation, detachment, and the kind of clarity that only comes after you've walked through storms that should have broken you. They don't know how to face someone who keeps evolving mid-battle. They don't know how to measure someone whose instincts rewrite themselves overnight. They don't know how to fight someone who outgrows their fear before breakfast. You became a moving target in a war they thought was stationary. You became the anomaly that breaks their data. You became the paradox that makes their logic melt. You became the creature that shouldn't exist, the one who mastered both darkness and light without belonging to either. And that duality is what kills them slowly. Because how do you defeat someone who's both the wound and the healer, both the sinner and the confessor, both the chaos and the calm, both the executioner and the absolution? You're not predictable enough to classify. You're not chaotic enough to dismiss. You're not gentle enough to underestimate. You're not cruel enough to avoid. You live in the exact psychological blind spot they were never trained to handle. The space between saint and psychopath, angel and demon, destiny and disaster. You're the kind of threat that doesn't feel like danger until the damage is already done. And that is why your last words hit them harder than a scream. Screaming is emotional, threats are emotional, anger is emotional. But your tone was inevitable. Your tone was the sound of someone who already knew the ending, someone who already saw the cracks, someone who already read their mind while they were still rehearsing their lies. You didn't warn them, you revealed them. And that revelation echoed so loudly in their skulls that they needed 100 professionals to tell them what they already feared. You didn't defeat them. They exposed themselves. Your words were not weapons. Your words were reflections, mirrors, truths. And the truth is what ruined them, not you. Because the truth showed them exactly who they become in your presence. Smaller, shakier, less certain, more exposed. You didn't overpower them. You over-understood them. And nothing terrifies a fragile ego more than being understood by someone it can't understand back. So they'll keep studying you, keep replaying your final sentence, keep rewriting reports, keep calling experts, keep pretending the next analysis will give them closure. But you and I, we both know the real punchline. They're not trying to understand your last words. They're trying to understand how they lost before the conversation even began. And the answer? Because you don't enter fights to win. You enter fights to confirm what fate already whispered. The moment you walk in, the outcome walks out.